As a sleep coach, content creator, and educator, there are certain questions that come up over and over again in different. You see different variations of the same question, different flavors of the same question. And today we're going to look at one of these very, very common questions. One of the questions I get asked all the time, and it is this question: what can I tell myself in the evening that will calm my brain, that will reduce my hyperarousal? We're going to answer this question and two others, which again are sort of just variations of this one, which includes: I keep saying that it's safe to be awake. Should I do this? And finally, is there a mantra I can use to teach my brain not to be afraid? And as we look at these questions, we can see that there's already insight. There's already a lot of insights in these questions. There's an understanding that my brain being afraid of being awake is really what's causing me the trouble. And then the insight that comes from there is, of course, that when my brain is no longer afraid, then I will sleep peacefully. So the question becomes, of course, how do I do that? And this question, which we've seen kind of different variations of, is there something I should tell myself? Is there a mantra I should kind of just keep repeating over again until my brain gets it? I do that actually. I keep saying this. Should I do this? This is, of course, very logical follow-up questions when you have this understanding that insomnia is a form of fear. And of course, we want that fear to fade out. So to answer this, I've divided this insomnia insight in three parts. One, we're going to see that there are some truths out there. We're going to see that the intent is what matters, and we're going to answer these three questions. So let's go right ahead here to A. And what are these truths I'm talking about? Well, I'm going to share some of them with you, of course. But what I want to point out here is that there are some foundational truths that are that really cannot be questioned. That are really there. They're really solid. And I put down three here that come up often in the context of mantras and what we should be telling ourselves, etc. And one of this is that it is safe to be awake. There's no evidence whatsoever that wakefulness as a state of mind has any harmful effects. So this is one of these truths. It is safe to be awake. Being awake is not dangerous. Another one is that we will always sleep. Some come across this as the expression "sleep drive will always win," which I don't use that often because it implies that there's some kind of struggle, like the win or lose, that type of thinking. But I think this is truth. We will always sleep. After a certain amount of wakefulness, sleep will follow, even if we don't perceive it as sleep. It does happen. I think this is a truth. We will always sleep. And similarly to the one we talked about before, thoughts and emotions can't hurt us. Anxiety cannot hurt us. Thoughts cannot hurt us. This is truth. And now, why does this matter? Well, it matters because when you learn these truths, or when you learn of them, you may at some level, like somehow cognitively, at least in the aware, to the extent that you have like access to your thoughts, your cognitive level, you can see that this is true. I believe this is true, but part of my brain doesn't seem to believe it. Like there's still anxiety around this. Like subconsciously, this has not become truth in like kind of my entire mind or my entire brain, if you will. And this is what leads to this kind of question, like, how do I internalize these truths? How do I make my brain fully see this? And this leads us to like our B section, which is like the intent is really what matters. So the thing here is that if we try to like use these truths in an effort to convince our anxious brain forcefully, well, this just creates more anxiety. And this is the tricky thing, because these are true, but we cannot force the brain to believe this. And I think it can really help to see that it's the same if we think of it as two people. Like you have an opinion, let's say a political opinion, because those are often very polarizing, and your friend has a different political opinion. Have you ever tried to convince your friend of your opinion? You see that that's going to create the opposite. The other person is going to be like feel so pressured and so attacked, frankly, that they're going to be like, no way. They're going to push back, and their ideas are going to be more entrenched, if anything, right? So whenever we try to convince somebody else or ourselves forcefully, the opposite happens. So when our brain is kind of anxious and it doesn't believe these truths fully, then trying to like forcefully make it believe that is just going to do the opposite. It's just going to create more anxiety, more and more fear, etc. So intent really matters. Using the truth to convince an anxious brain forcefully creates more anxiety. And if the intent, is to make X happen, then the opposite will, which we already talked about. So this is really just a repetition of this, but pointing out that there can be different intents with kind of using these truths. One of them is, of course, to make sleep happen. One of them is to lower hyperarousal. One of them is to make ourselves calm, which is sort of a similar thing. But regardless, when the intent is to make any of these things happen, the opposite will happen: more struggle sleeping, more hyperarousal. Now, on the flip side, if the intent is sort of just a friendly reminder and we're not attached to the outcome, then things can get more peaceful. And this is when we're not saying, okay, so let's take a look at these truths. For example, let's say we'll always sleep. Let's say we're trying to kind of convince the brain like this: it's fine, I will sleep, I will sleep, I will sleep, I will sleep, I will sleep. When we kind of repeat that in a forceful way, that's tricky. But if we just remind ourselves that, yeah, I'm awake now, it's not what I want to be, but eventually sleep will always happen. Friendly reminder, but also the non-attachment to the outcome, that if I happen to fall asleep pretty soon, that's nice. If I don't, well, I'm not gonna berate myself or be angry at myself for that. That can happen as well. That friendly reminder style, that can be helpful, right? And now to take this back to our questions, how can we sort of summarize this in context of the questions we had? Well, let's go over them. So the first one was, what can I tell myself in the evening that calms my brain? Well, the answer really becomes, as long as the intent isn't to make the brain calmer directly, then whatever you say or do will be helpful. And at first it can sound kind of disappointing that, okay, I cannot force my brain to believe this. But on the flip side, when we look at this way, we can see that it can actually be freeing, because it doesn't really matter what we say or do, as long as the intent isn't to force that, it will help. So if you remind yourself that I will sleep, just kind of like without further intent, just as a friendly reminder, or you do anything else, something you like, something you enjoy, you tell yourself something you like to hear with no intent, all of that can be really, really helpful. And now, second question was, I keep saying it's safe to be awake. Should I do this? Well, here we can see that if you have been trying to convince the brain by repeating this over and over again, then this is sort of an invitation to maybe do things in a different way, a gentler way, a friendlier way. And then finally, is there a mantra I can use to teach the brain not to be afraid? We've already pretty much answered this, but I just want to focus on the word mantra here because it comes up very often. A mantra is just really a phrase or a sentence or something that we repeat over and over again. And what I will say about this is that I've not used mantras personally, but I can very much see that they can be nice in many contexts. Oftentimes we hear mantras in the context of like yoga and meditation and chanting and things like that. And if you're having a nice experience, I'm sure a mantra can just amplify a nice experience. But again, when it's used gently like that, without force, then it's nice. So hope this was really helpful to you. And I want to say that in this teaching that we went over today here, you can see that, education, like a logical approach, plus the understanding that there are some things that in the end will be a little bit mysterious. Letting go will always ultimately be the answer. If you are a person who believes this, you believe in education, you also see the wisdom of ultimately letting go, then our way is going to help you very much. Then, our way is your way. And whether you find everything you need here in the free content or you want to join our programs, again, I think it will fit you if you believe in education and also letting go. So, yep, if you find everything you need here, that's perfect. If you want to join one of our programs, then head over to the Sleep Coach School and you'll find them there. And if you do, I look forward very much to seeing you on the inside. For now, I'll just say thank you for tuning in and see you back real soon. Bye-bye for now.